I'm Kelly, and I grew up in what you'd call a good family. Mom and Dad loved me to bits and made sure I got the best education possible. Life was pretty sweet, I gotta say. But the real gem in my childhood? That was Sarah. Sarah and I met in elementary school, and from day one, we were thick as thieves. We shared everything, our dreams, our fears, our deepest secrets. I remember this one time in high school when Sarah called me in tears. It was past midnight, and I snuck out of my window to meet her at our secret spot in the park. "Kelly, I think I'm in love," she sobbed as soon as I got there. "It's Jake from chemistry class." I burst out laughing. "Jake? The one who set his lab coat on fire last week?" Sarah punched my arm, but she was giggling too. "Stop it. He's cute." We spent the next hour dissecting every interaction she'd ever had with Jake, planning how she could get his attention. That's just how we rolled, no secret too big, no problem too small. As we grew older, our bond only got stronger. We were there for each other through our awkward phases, our first kisses, our heartbreaks. When graduation came around, it felt like the end of an era. "I can't believe we're going to different colleges," Sarah said, her voice cracking as we hugged goodbye. "Hey, distance ain't got nothing on us," I reassured her, even as I felt a lump in my throat. "We've got Skype, remember? It'll be like I never left." And you know what? For a while, it was. We'd Skype almost every night, catching up on our day, gossiping about our new classmates, complaining about assignments. It was different, sure, but we made it work. But as time went on, I started noticing changes in Sarah. "I don't get it, Kelly," she'd say, her face pixelated on my laptop screen. "Why don't guys ever notice me? Am I that invisible?" "Come on, Sarah," I'd reply, trying to cheer her up. "You're amazing. The right guy just hasn't come along yet." She'd give me this look, half sad, half envious. "Easy for you to say, you're beautiful. Guys are probably falling all over themselves to date you." I never knew how to respond to that. Sure, I'd had my fair share of dates, but it wasn't like I was fighting off admirers with a stick. And besides, Sarah was pretty too, in her own quiet way. I just wished she could see it. After college, Sarah and I both found ourselves back in our hometown. It felt like old times, but something had shifted. Maybe it was the years apart, or maybe we'd just grown up. Either way, I was determined to keep our friendship strong. We fell back into our old routines pretty quickly. Weekends were for parties, catching up, and reminiscing about the good old days. It was at one of these parties that everything started to change. I remember it clear as day. We were at this crowded bar, the music thumping so loud you could barely hear yourself think. Sarah was nursing her drink, her eyes scanning the room. "Oh my God, Kelly," she suddenly grabbed my arm. "Look at that guy by the bar. Isn't he gorgeous?" I followed her gaze to a tall, dark-haired guy leaning against the bar. He was handsome, I'll give her that. "Yeah, he's cute," I agreed. "Why don't you go talk to him?" Sarah's face fell. "Are you kidding? He wouldn't look twice at me." Before I could argue, the guy looked our way. But instead of noticing Sarah, his eyes locked on me. He smiled and started walking over. "Hi there," he said, his voice deep and warm. "I'm Tom. Can I buy you a drink?" I glanced at Sarah, who was staring at her shoes. Thanks, but I'm good," I replied, trying to include my friend. "I'm Kelly, and this is my friend Sarah." Tom barely acknowledged Sarah, his attention fully on me. "Well, Kelly, how about a dance then?" Reluctantly, I let Tom lead me to the dance floor. As we swayed to the music, I couldn't help but feel guilty, knowing Sarah was watching from the sidelines. Over the next few weeks, Tom was persistent. He'd call, text, even show up at places he knew I'd be. At first, I didn't take it seriously. But there was something about his charm, his determination, that started to win me over. When I finally agreed to a proper date, I was nervous about telling Sarah. We met for coffee, and I broke the news. So, Tom asked me out, I said, stirring my latte. And I said yes. Are you okay with this? Her eyes flashed with something, anger? Jealousy? Before she shrugged. Why wouldn't I be? It's not like I have a chance with guys like that anyway. I'm just happy for you. But she wasn't. As Tom and I grew closer, Sarah became more distant. She'd cancel plans, ignore my texts, and when we did hang out, there was this tension I couldn't quite put my finger on. One night, after another canceled plan, I called her out on it. What's going on, Sarah? You've been acting weird ever since I started dating Tom. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I can't do this anymore, Kelly. I don't think we should be friends anymore. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. What? Why? Sarah, if this is about Tom. It's not just about Tom, she exploded. It's about everything. You've always had it easy, Kelly. You're pretty, you're smart, guys fall all over you. And I'm just tired of being the sidekick in the Kelly show. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. I wanted to fix it, to make her understand that she wasn't just a sidekick to me. But as the days turned into weeks with no word from Sarah, I started to accept that maybe our friendship had run its course. 2 years flew by in a whirlwind of love and laughter with Tom. He was everything I could have hoped for in a partner, kind, funny, and supportive. Then, on a crisp autumn evening, Tom took me to our favorite spot in the park. As the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, he dropped to one knee and pulled out a small velvet box. That night, lying in bed next to Tom, I made a decision. I'd reach out to Sarah. Maybe enough time had passed for us to mend our friendship. The next day, with shaking hands, I dialed her number. To my surprise, she answered on the second ring. Hey, Sarah, I said, suddenly nervous. I have some news. Tom proposed, we're getting married. There was a long pause. I held my breath, waiting for her reaction. Wow, she finally said. That's great, Kelly, congratulations. Thanks, I replied, relief washing over me. Listen, Sarah, I know things have been rough between us, but I miss you. Would you like to meet up? Another pause. Yeah, I'd like that, she said slowly. We met at our old favorite coffee shop. Sarah looked good, her hair was shorter, and she seemed more confident somehow. As we sipped our lattes, the awkwardness slowly melted away. I'm sorry, Sarah said suddenly. For how I acted before. I was jealous and insecure. It wasn't fair to you. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm sorry too. I should have been more sensitive to your feelings. Sarah's eyes lit up. So, tell me about the proposal. And the ring, let me see it. From that day on, Sarah became a constant presence in our lives. She'd come over to discuss wedding details, help with DIY decorations, and even offered to edit a romantic video about Tom and me for the reception. It'll be perfect, she assured me, her eyes sparkling with excitement. A beautiful tribute to your love story. I was overjoyed. Not only was I marrying the man of my dreams, but I had my best friend back. Life couldn't get any better. As the wedding day approached, I took time off work to focus on the final preparations. Between dress fittings, menu tastings, and last-minute details, I barely had time to breathe, let alone spend quality time with Tom. 3 days before the wedding, as I was double-checking the seating arrangements, my phone buzzed with a message from my cousin, Lisa. She worked at a hotel in town, and the message she sent shattered my world. Kelly, I'm so sorry, but I think you need to see this, the message read, followed by a video. With trembling hands, I pressed play. The grainy security footage showed Tom and Sarah, wrapped in each other's arms, kissing passionately as they entered a hotel room. The timestamp on the video was from just minutes ago. My world had just crumbled around me, but I wasn't about to sit and wallow. With a newfound determination, I grabbed my car keys and headed to the hotel where my cousin Lisa worked. The same hotel where my fiance and supposed best friend were currently betraying me. As I drove, my mind raced. Lisa's message kept replaying in my head. Kelly, I'm so sorry, but I think you need to see this. She'd always been more like a sister to me than a cousin, and I was grateful for her loyalty. Tom had never met her, which turned out to be a stroke of luck in this nightmare scenario. I pulled into the hotel parking lot, my hands shaking as I turned off the engine. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out and walked into the lobby, spotting Lisa at the reception desk. Kelly, she said softly as I approached, her eyes full of sympathy. I'm so sorry. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Lisa glanced around quickly, then gestured for me to follow her. Come with me, she whispered. I have an idea. She led me to a small room near the stairwell. It was barely bigger than a closet, with a chair facing a small window. It's a security observation room, Lisa explained. You can see people coming and going on the stairs, but they can't see you. We waited in tense silence. I kept my phone ready, determined to gather more evidence of their betrayal. After what felt like an eternity, I heard familiar voices. That was amazing, Sarah's breathy voice drifted up the stairwell. You're such an incredible lover, Tom. I felt bile rise in my throat as Tom's deep chuckle followed. You're not so bad yourself, babe. Kelly doesn't even compare. They came into view, and I hit record on my phone, my hand surprisingly steady. Tom had his arm around Sarah's waist, pulling her close as they descended the stairs. What about after the wedding? Sarah asked, a hint of worry in her voice. Will we still be able to do this? Tom stopped, turning to face her. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her deeply. I zoomed in, capturing every excruciating detail. Of course we will, Tom said as they broke apart. You think a little thing like marriage is going to stop me from being with you? We'll find ways to sneak off during the reception. Maybe even during the ceremony if we're clever. They both laughed, the sound grating on my ears. Sarah playfully swatted his arm. You're terrible, but I love it. And I love you, Tom replied, kissing her again. I stopped the recording, feeling sick. Lisa put a comforting hand on my shoulder. I'm so sorry, Kelly. What are you going to do? I stood up, a plan already forming in my mind. I'm going to make them pay, I said, my voice cold and determined. They think they can laugh about sneaking around at my wedding? Well, I've got a surprise for them. The next 3 days were an exquisite form of torture. Every smile from Sarah, every touch from Tom, felt like a knife twisting in my gut. They played their parts perfectly, the supportive best friend and the loving fiancé. If I hadn't seen the video with my own eyes, I might have convinced myself it was all a terrible mistake. The bachelorette party was the ultimate test of my acting skills. Sarah had organized it, inviting all our mutual friends. My cousin Lisa was there too, a silent pillar of support. As we sipped champagne and played silly wedding-themed games, I felt like I was watching the scene from outside my body. Sarah leaned in to whisper, I'm so happy for you, Kelly. You and Tom are perfect together. I nearly choked on my drink. Lisa, noticing my distress, quickly grabbed my hand and squeezed it reassuringly. I shot her a grateful look. Without her, I might have lost it right then and there, screaming at Sarah for her betrayal. Instead, I plastered on a smile and raised my glass. Thanks to my amazing maid of honor for this wonderful party. The girls cheered, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension. Sarah beamed, basking in the praise, while I imagined dumping my drink over her head. The night before the wedding, Sarah came over with a flash drive. I've got a surprise for you, she said, her eyes twinkling. I put together a video of all your romantic moments with Tom. We'll play it before the ceremony tomorrow. It'll be so beautiful. As soon as she left, a plan began to form in my mind. I looked at the flash drive, then at my phone where the damning video was stored. A cruel smile spread across my face. Oh, there would be a video played tomorrow all right, but not the one Sarah was expecting. I was so caught up in my thoughts that I didn't hear Tom come in. "Whoa," he said, stopping short. "What's with that look?" I forced a laugh. "Oh, that. I was just thinking about tomorrow. I can't wait for the ceremony." Tom's face softened. He crossed the room and pulled me into his arms. "I can't wait either. I love you so much, Kelly. I'll always be faithful to you, I promise." The irony of his words made me want to scream. Instead, I buried my face in his chest, pretending my shudders were from happiness rather than rage. As I lay in bed that night, listening to Tom's steady breathing beside me, I finalized my plan. I would swap the videos early in the morning, before anyone else arrived at the venue. Sarah's lovingly crafted montage of lies would be replaced with the raw, ugly truth. Part of me felt guilty for what I was about to do. It would be so public, so humiliating. But then I remembered the way Tom and Sarah had laughed about sneaking away during the wedding, and my resolve hardened. The morning of what should have been my wedding day dawned bright and clear. As guests began to arrive, I plastered on a smile, playing the role of the blushing bride. Sarah fluttered around me, adjusting my veil and gushing about how beautiful everything looked. It took every ounce of self-control not to slap her. Finally, it was time. The guests were seated, an expectant hush falling over the room. Tom stood at the altar, looking handsome and completely unsuspecting. Sarah gave me a thumbs up from the side, ready to play her carefully crafted video. Before we begin, the officiant announced, "We have a special presentation to set the mood for this joyous occasion." I closed my eyes as the video began to play. For a moment, there was only confusion as the grainy hotel footage appeared instead of the expected romantic montage. Then, as Tom and Sarah's voices filled the room, discussing their affair in explicit detail, all hell broke loose. Gasps of shock rippled through the audience. Tom's face drained of color, while Sarah let out a strangled cry. I stood there, my heart pounding, as the truth I'd been carrying for days was finally exposed. The silence that followed the video was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop. Then, Sarah's parents erupted. "How dare you?" her mother shrieked, pointing at me. "How could you humiliate our daughter like this? You're cruel and spiteful." Before I could respond, my own parents jumped to my defense. "Your daughter is the cruel one," my father roared. "She betrayed Kelly. And you," he turned to Tom, his face red with anger, "you're a scoundrel. A bastard. You have no place in our family." The venue descended into chaos. Guests began taking sides, some defending me, others condemning my actions. "She had every right to expose them," I heard someone shout. "But to do it like this? On her wedding day? It's too much," another argued. I stood in the middle of it all, a strange calm washing over me. This was it. The moment I'd been building towards for days. As the shouting continued, I finally raised my voice. "Enough." Surprisingly, the room fell silent, all eyes turning to me. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice steady. "I'm sorry you all had to witness this. But I'm not sorry for exposing the truth. Clearly, there won't be a wedding today. Please, feel free to take your gifts home with you. And thank you for being here, even if it didn't turn out the way any of us expected." With that, I turned and walked out of the venue, leaving the murmuring crowd behind me. As I stepped into the sunlight, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was over. The truth was out. 5 days later, a notification popped up on my phone. It was from Tom. My heart raced as I opened the message, unsure of what to expect. "Kelly, what you did was cruel and unnecessary. You've humiliated me and Sarah in front of everyone we know. You need to take responsibility for your actions. I expect you to pay for all the wedding penalties and compensate me for the emotional distress you've caused. If you refuse, I'll be forced to take legal action." I stared at the screen, a mixture of disbelief and anger washing over me. He was the one who cheated, and now he was threatening me? I typed out a quick, curt response. "You've got to be kidding me, Tom. You and Sarah are the ones who should be paying for everything. Don't contact me again. I blocked him immediately after sending the message, my hands shaking with rage. A trial? Let him try. I had video evidence of his infidelity. But the thought of dragging this out in court made me feel sick. Just as I was starting to spiral into anxiety about potential legal battles, my phone rang. It was Margaret, Tom's mother. Hesitantly, I answered. Hello, Kelly. Tom's father and I want to apologize. What our son did was inexcusable. We're so sorry for the pain he's caused you. I sat down heavily, taken aback by this unexpected turn. Thank you, I managed to say. We want you to know, Margaret continued, that we'll be covering all the wedding expenses and penalties. It's the least we can do. And please, don't worry about Tom's threats. We've made it clear to him that he's to leave you alone. Relief washed over me. I appreciate that, Margaret, thank you. After hanging up, I found myself replaying the events of the past week in my mind. Had I done the right thing? Could I have handled it differently? The questions swirled in my head, keeping me up at night. But every time I started to doubt myself, I remembered the video of Tom and Sarah laughing about sneaking away during what should have been my wedding. My jaw would clench, and I'd feel that same surge of righteous anger. As the weeks passed, I slowly started to emerge from my self-imposed isolation. I went back to work, started going to the gym again, even met up with a few friends who had stood by me through everything. But when Lisa gently suggested setting me up with a friend of hers, I quickly declined. I'm not ready, I told her. I need time to heal, to figure out who I am on my own. She nodded understandingly. Take all the time you need. We're here for you when you're ready. Months passed, and life settled into a new normal. I threw myself into work, picked up new hobbies, and slowly but surely, the ache in my heart began to dull. I was healing, one day at a time. It was during a casual lunch with some colleagues that I first heard the news. Did you see Sarah's latest post? One of them asked, her eyes wide with gossip. She and Tom are officially dating now. My coworker slid her phone across the table. There it was, in full color, a selfie of Tom and Sarah, looking sickeningly happy. The caption read, "Finally with the man I love, despite all the vile machinations of envious people. True love conquers all. Blessed in love." I handed the phone back, my stomach churning. The implication was clear, I was the envious people she was referring to. As if I'd been the one to break them up, rather than expose their affair. I forced a smile. They deserve each other. And I meant it. Let them have their fairy tale ending. I was done with both of them. Life went on. I focused on myself, on building the life I wanted. And then, a few months later, another piece of gossip made its way to me. This time, it was Lisa who broke the news. "Kelly, you won't believe this," she said over the phone, her voice a mix of disbelief and amusement. "Tom broke up with Sarah. He posted about it on Facebook." What? Why? I couldn't help but be curious. According to his post, and I quote, "I'm tired of the overly clingy and possessive behavior from my partner. I need my space and freedom." I couldn't help but laugh. It started as a small chuckle and grew into a full-blown belly laugh. It wasn't just schadenfreude, though I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of it. It was closure. Final proof that I'd dodged a bullet with both of them. A week later, it was my birthday. I'd planned a small gathering with my closest friends and family. As I was getting ready, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Sarah standing there, looking nervous and clutching a beautifully wrapped gift. "Kelly," she said, her voice small. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm so sorry. I was stupid and selfish, and I ruined the best friendship I've ever had. Can we try to fix this?" She held out the gift, her eyes pleading. I looked at it, then back at her. In that moment, I saw our whole history flash before my eyes. The good times, the bad times, and the ultimate betrayal. I took a deep breath. No, Sarah, we can't. Her face fell. Kelly, please. I appreciate your apology, I cut her off, my voice firm but not unkind. But some things can't be fixed. What you and Tom did, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. You betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. I gently pushed the gift back towards her. I don't want your gift, and I don't see any point in trying to rebuild a friendship with someone I can't trust. I wish you well, Sarah, but I think it's best if we go our separate ways. I closed the door and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. Then I smiled. My real friends would be arriving soon to celebrate my birthday. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I'd been through hell and come out stronger on the other side. And as the doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of my true friends, I felt ready for whatever the future might bring. The past was behind me, and the road ahead was wide open. It was time to start the next chapter of my life, and this time, I was the one holding the pen.